Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. And in today's video, we've got a Texas Tech football mailbag. We'll answer your questions in regards to an updated record prediction, some recruiting questions, as well as, what is a success for the Red Raiders this season? Now, if you haven't already, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really goes a long way towards helping us and also growing this engaging Texas Tech community here on YouTube. So if you're enjoying the video and the content we're putting out daily here on the Back to 12 podcast channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like the video. All right, before we get into today's questions, I have a question for you guys. Does Texas Tech make a bowl game this season? Simple Y for yes or N for no. I'll tell you guys in a little bit why I'm asking that question. It is in regards to one of the questions we have in today's mailbag. And speaking of the mailbag, let's get straight to it. Question number one. This from TFurg on YouTube. TFurg, appreciate you sending in a question. If Texas Tech turns the table and makes a Big 12 championship game appearance, can we agree the perception will still be that we underachieved, or do we hype up next year's team knowing we have always been the underrated underdog anyways, most outside the program brand? I'll be blunt and honest with you, TFurg. If Texas Tech somehow makes the Big 12 championship game this year, it's 100% a success and honestly unprecedented with the start that they had. We'll go more in depth on that here in a minute. But listen, your program has never won one of those, let alone gone to one, right? So, it's one of those deals where I get it. As a Texas Tech, alumni, I love the football program, right? Somebody that, makes content around the team, covers the team, whatever it may be. You also have to keep it real sometimes, right? Like, Texas Tech in the grand scheme of things hasn't really had that great of a football program outside of a spot here, spot there kind of deal, right? They haven't had it consistently, at least at the highest of the high level. And in my opinion, the Big 12 championship is the highest of the high level in their respective conference, right? So if Texas Tech got to the Big 12 championship game, that would 100% be a success. And they would go from being the hunters to the huntee, right? Like, that's what would happen instantaneously overnight. Now, again, this would be unprecedented considering the start that Texas Tech has had this season. Again, we'll go more in depth in that later on with the crazy stat from Texas Tech Athletics and also a couple other people on Twitter, But yeah, no doubt this would be a success. And you would 100% be hyping up next year's team. Without an unequivocal doubt, that would be happening. All right, let's jump into question number two. This from Matthew Miller, 471 on YouTube. Appreciate you, Matthew. It's Tech in the running for any highly rated offensive line recruits? Well, it's funny. I went back and did a little bit of research. Got it down at the bottom of the screen if you want to read along. But if you're talking about the 2023 and 2024 class, absolutely. All right, so in the past 2 years, Texas Tech has either signed or gained the commitment of 3 4-star offensive linemen or higher, right? They obviously have signed one in NF. They've also got Ellis, and now they've got Holton, right? And NF is Fatig right there, the offensive lineman. Should have just said his name. But Ellis Davis and Colton Hendricks, Lubbock native, goes to out there at Cooper. Those guys are all rated as 4-star offensive linemen. Now, you could argue that number should be higher, but from a historical perspective, right, we're going back the past 5 years to 2018. Texas Tech had 0 4-star offensive lineman commits or signees, according to 24/7 Sports. So, again, it's a work in progress. Don't get me wrong, but Joey McGuire and crew have made it a priority that they want to get speed on this roster and they want to build in the trenches, whether that's on the defensive side or the offensive line side. So it's good to see this, right? And not to mention, right, they have a couple of guys in the portal. They've got some holdovers that have been solid as well. I mean, the portal guy that comes to mind is Monroe Mills, albeit he did struggle against Oregon a little bit. He's still a solid offensive lineman with a little bit of eligibility left. Obviously, we know about Cole Spencer, Rusty Stats. You get Dennis Wilburn as well. But you also have some guys behind him, or those offensive linemen that are starting, I should say, that could be replacements for next year's offensive line when a lot of these guys leave, right? You got to think about it. Cole Spencer's for sure gone. This is his last year of eligibility. You could see Caleb Rogers leave. You could see Monroe Mills leave, right? Like you could see a lot of your offensive line leave. But fortunately for Texas Tech, they have a guy like Jacoby Jackson that can plug in and play right away, that has starts under his belt. Landon Peterson, right? Like they've got some guys there, and it's good that they're going out into the high school ranks and really identifying guys early and often when it comes to guys that maybe are low profile, not getting as much pub recruiting wise as they should. And then you see them absolutely explode up the charts. And you got Faytag, right? You've got Davis, and now you've got Hendricks, and Nick is already on campus. So you've got two more coming in Ellis Davis and then Holton Hendricks as well. So you're building a solid foundation for your offensive line for years to come. All right, number 3. We've got Jeff, and I'm not going to lie, Jeff, I'm going to butcher this. Shinzen? I don't know, Jen. I don't know what that is, Jeff. I'm sorry. I'm assuming it's a city somewhere. I'm just not cultured, I guess. But let's get to your question. What are your predictions for the rest of the season now that we have seen they aren't living up to the hype? I have us going 5-7 with wins over Tarleton, West Virginia, Iowa State, Houston, and one other surprising one. Well, first, Jeff, I appreciate the question. They don't play Iowa State this year. So let's get that out of the way first. But this is the interesting stat, and I hope y'all stayed around for this one. I posted it yesterday on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at RCMB323. The handle is right there next to the name. Listen, Texas Tech is kind of an unprecedented territory right now in terms of if they want to make it to even just strictly a bowl game. And let me know down below if you think Texas Tech is going to make it to a bowl game. Just simple Y for yes or N for no. The Red Raiders have started a season 0-2 now 11 times in program history, including this season, right? In the previous 10 seasons where Texas Tech has started 0-2, Texas Tech has only had one winning record / season. To take it a step further, the Big 12 has never had an 0-2 team make a bowl game. Now you're thinking, RC, you just said they did it one time, a winning record, winning season. It was back in 1947. Okay, so overall, this is my thought process for Texas Tech moving forward. I think Texas Tech is fighting for bowl eligibility all year. Listen, they've got a tough schedule, right? It goes away, home, away, home, away, home all year, right? Now, luckily, you get a team like Kansas State and TCU at home, right? Now, you do have to go to Baylor. You do have to go to BYU. You also have to go to Texas to end the year, right? Like, this is a difficult schedule for Texas Tech. You have to win the games that you're supposed to win, right? Simple and plain. That's just how it is for Texas Tech moving forward. If they go unbeaten at home the rest of the way, that's 5 wins. We know Texas Tech is a really good home team. Remember, they only lost one game last year. They've lost one game this year at home as well, but maybe they get back on track, right? Do I think they actually win all their home games? I mean, if I'm being honest, probably not. TCU and Kansas State are on there. So now you'd have to win 2 games on the road, right? I think West Virginia should be a win. But where does the other one come from, right? Like, that's the main question. Again, you go to Baylor, you go to BYU, you go to Kansas, and then you go to Texas, right? Do you beat Baylor and Waco? You've had a little bit of success there, gotten hosed by the refs a couple of years. Out there at the toilet seat, right? No shame, Baylor. It's cool you got a river. Do you win out in BYU? That's one of the toughest places to win in America, right? Kansas is on the come up. If Jalen Daniels is healthy, I think Kansas and Texas Tech, that's a toss-up, right? And I'd probably lean giving Kansas the win there because it is up in Lawrence, right? And then obviously Texas, people aren't going to like hearing it, but they're a really damn good football team, and it's hard to win at Darrell K. Royal, right? So I think things have become a little difficult for Texas Tech to reach that 6-win mark. I will say this. These are the wins that I have in my mind right now as it stands. I think they beat Tarleton. I think that's a given on Saturday. I think they beat West Virginia and they beat Houston. So if that happens, they're 3-2 on the season. They go on a 3-game winning streak here. I do think they beat UCF at home because, again, it is in Lubbock in November and everything like that. Okay, then you have TCU or Kansas State. I think you win one of those games just because, again, it is at home. If you told me that TCU and Kansas State were both on the road, I don't think Tech wins either of those games, right? But since they're both at home, I think Texas Tech goes 1-1 in that series between TCU and Kansas State. I think TCU is more likely since it'll be on a Thursday night under the lights. Weird things happen in Lubbock at night, and maybe Kansas State is at night as well. But I think it's more likely Texas Tech beats TCU, okay? And then the other win you have, I think, would be Kansas, right? And that gets you to 6. I don't know unless things change drastically in terms of what Texas Tech has done. And I'm a guy that thinks that Texas Tech has really done it to themselves. I think they're a talented team, but the way that the schedule presents itself, right? I think you're going to have to really stretch to get to a bowl game and maybe to 7 wins this year. That's just kind of where I stand right now. Maybe I'm crazy. Call me out in the comments below, but I want to hear from you guys one more time. Does Texas Tech make a bowl game this season? A simple Y for yes or in for no. Let me know on the pinned comment down below. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like the video. Help us grow the channel. We're giving you daily Texas Tech videos for absolutely free. Nobody else is doing that here on YouTube. So if you want to be a part of the most engaging Texas Tech community in Red Raider Nation, you know what to do. Hit that like button and hit that subscribe button to stay in the know on Texas Tech football all year long right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel.